Hello there, Radiant here. Now before I begin, I want to clarify that yes, the title is in fact clickbait, something that I'll explain towards the very end of this video. Now that that's been clarified, let's get to the main part. A couple months back, I bought my very first few pieces of camera gear. Two things in particular. One, a prime lens, and two, a ND filter, an un-ND filter. Yeah, an ND. And then adapters for both of those, but we'll get to that. So what you're seeing right here is the 50mm f1.8 EF lens from Canon. This is a very popular lens, mostly among photographers, but also among video enthusiasts such as myself. I picked this up specifically because of how popular it was. It was just a really easy recommendation by most people, specifically Canon users. And second reason is simply because of how affordable it was. It's a really easy recommendation for beginners or enthusiasts alike, simply because of how much you're getting for the price of this lens. Like, it's really, really good quality. I was originally going to make a review on this lens, but then it hit me because of how popular this lens is. There's probably 1,000 other reviews of this particular lens. So, there's no point in me throwing out my 2 cents. So instead, I'm just going to do a brief overview. Like I said earlier, it's 50mm, it's f1.8. Pretty good. Build is quite solid. It can do autofocus or manual focus, so that's quite nice. It's good. It's a good lens. That's about all I can say. I mean, there's not much more to say about it. If you know cameras, you know that 50mm is quite a tight focal length, and there's no image stabilization. Just putting that out there in case you're looking for an IS lens. But other than that, there's really nothing to complain about this lens. It's good. It does what it needs to do, and that's about that. Now, to accompany this lens, I bought an adapter, which is this Comlite autofocus EF to EOS M adapter, or EFM, depending on where you see it. I see the two used interchangeably, but EOS M or EFM, they're the same thing. And this adapter basically just makes EF lenses compatible with EFM mounts. If you're buying this, you're opening yourself up to what is arguably the most popular lens mount system in the world. Whether you're completely new to cameras and your first camera is a Canon mirrorless and you're just looking to expand your options when it comes to lenses, or if you're a camera veteran who's switching from Canon DSLRs to Canon mirrorless, either way, it's a pretty useful piece of gear. Let's say you have a huge collection of EF lenses and you're moving to EFM cameras. With this adapter, your EF lenses don't become completely obsolete because you can just transfer them over to the new system. So yeah, all in all, pretty good, pretty solid build. It's nice and weighty as well. In appearance alone, you don't suspect much, but the construction is all metal. And it's quite heavy. It adds a good chunk of weight to my camera, so it is by no means cheaply made. It's really sturdy. It's really good. My only gripe with it is basically that every time I put in my EF lens, I hear this grinding sound. Now, I don't know if this is a thing that's characteristic of EF lenses in general, or if it's just this adapter. But every time I turn the lens in to click it into place, it feels like I'm grinding against sandpaper. Basically, just let me demonstrate. Now they are separate, and listen to when I put them together. I don't know if you heard that at all, but it feels like it's wrong. That's all I have to say. It feels wrong. I have no reason to take this out at all because this is my only EF lens. But if and when I get new EF lenses in the future and I have to put them on this adapter, I'm gonna cringe a little every time I screw them in. The third piece of gear that I bought is an ND filter, like I mentioned earlier. The great little addition. if you're just starting out, again, whether in photography or video, doesn't matter. An ND filter is always useful, right? Especially when you're dialing in those settings in your camera and you're still a little overexposed. An ND filter can help fix that. Now, this is what is called a variable ND filter, which basically means it's multiple ND filters in one. Professional grade ND filters usually have a single stop of ND, but obviously I'm not at that level yet, so I'm perfectly fine with this. Also, it saves you the hassle of having to buy multiple filters for multiple stops. Instead, you just get one ND filter and you turn the ring like so, and the exposure goes down. Very handy, very useful when setting up shots. It also comes with this nice little cleaning cloth, which is a nice addition. Last but not least, I bought something called ND filter step-up rings, and what this is really is just a kit of multiple metal rings that adapt larger diameter filters to narrower lenses. In the future, let's say I have, a variety of different lens diameters, then, it saves me the hassle of having to buy a specific filter for every single lens diameter that I have. So I can always buy slightly wider and then put it onto a slightly narrower lens without sacrificing much. All right, so there you have it. Those are the very first pieces of camera gear that I've ever bought. So now that you've seen what the setup looks like all put together, here's some sample footage that I acquired over the last couple months. So there you go. That was some of the footage that I shot through this exact setup. Really no theme to it, just random stuff and events that I found personally interesting. Now that you've seen the sample footage, let me explain why I titled the video the way that I did. So with the footage in question, I hope that it's pretty evident that this lens setup obviously is quite good, or at least it's not bad. Functionally, it's not bad at all, but it is limited. And let me explain. As I mentioned earlier, this is a 50mm prime, which means it doesn't zoom, and there is no IS or image stabilization. So on its own, it's actually quite difficult to capture stable footage with this lens without some sort of external compensation, like a gimbal or something like that. And 50mm is quite a tight focal length, so you can't exactly fit a lot into the frame. So from a functional standpoint, this really limits what this lens can do, which should be fairly obvious. I mean, it was only designed to do one specific thing well. And so when I first received this lens in the mail, I was super excited to play around with it and test it out and, shoot some stuff. And overall, I was just really, really excited. But within seconds of popping it onto my camera and messing around with it, I instantly realized the shaky footage and the really tight focal length and the fact that it was really hard to get anything in frame without backing out a lot. And what I thought instantaneously was, what if this was the wrong choice? And maybe I should have bought something that's slightly wider, or maybe something with image stabilization. In fact, why don't I hop on Amazon right now and cop a new one? And as soon as I thought those thoughts, I pretty much had to step back and call myself out because I found it absolutely weird. So I thought to myself, why in the world is my first instinct after receiving this brand new lens to buy another one? And after thinking that, it brought me to a broader conclusion about our society and the way we consume things on a very regular basis. Now, I'm a tech head, all right? I like reading about and learning about all the sorts of new tech and gadgets that come out every single year. But the truth of the matter is, all this stuff, regardless of how cool it is on a constant, never-ending refresh cycle. Now, I understand why this is important, obviously. Without it, we wouldn't be getting the technology that we have today. If it wasn't for people and engineers and inventors and all of that pushing their capabilities to the very limits, then our technology would never advance. But at the same time, this kind of refresh cycle is just as much there just to get us to buy stuff as it is there to further innovation. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying not to invest in your hobby or even buy stuff that makes you happy. But if there's anything I learned from this experience, it's that we need to really reevaluate the reasons for why we buy things. When you buy something, are you buying it just for the sake of buying it? Just because it's the latest thing and you have enough money to cop it? Like I said, you can invest in your hobby, buy new equipment for yourself, or just buy things in general that you enjoy. But we also need to learn when to be content and to be grateful for what we do have in the current moment. When I ordered this lens, I was super excited about it. But within minutes of playing with it on the day that I received it, I was instantly craving a new one. And it really opened my eyes to a subconscious part of myself that I didn't realize was there. Like, I like to think that I'm pretty content and I'm fairly grateful with what I have and with all the things that I do enjoy on a daily basis. But in that moment, it was made pretty obvious that there's still a part of me that's incredibly greedy. And that's the part that I still need to work on, unfortunately. But yeah, there's my little revelation, if you will. I know it sounds kind of corny, but honestly, in times like these, in a year like this, 2020, I feel like it's a message that needs to be heard, even if it's not something everybody wants to hear. I better stop talking before I make this video way too long. Sorry for my little rant there, but I genuinely felt like I needed to put that out there. If you actually sat through that and you made it to the end of the video, I sincerely appreciate it. And just out of curiosity, just to see how many people have actually made it to this end part, please leave a comment that says, "We live in a society." All right, just throw that down there in the comments, and yeah, really just soak in the meme. Anyways, I hope that you all are doing well, staying safe, and staying healthy. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.